Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kristen Brown, and I'm a self-worth mastery and relationship healing author, life coach, and mentor. And I'm also the host of the Sweet Empowerment podcast, Reclaiming Your Personal Power, which you can find on all major podcasting platforms. And today I'm going to be responding to a question from somebody who left this beautiful and articulate comment on one of my shorts. And the title of that short was "When a Boundary doesn't work, Follow Up with Action." And here's what she had to say. She said, "I think this was a very useful lesson because you demonstrate clearly how to apply what you're saying. It would be lovely if you'd consider making a follow-up video giving more real-world examples of action boundaries. I think what happens, at least for me, when I'm trying to make personal changes is that I'll get it cognitively long before I actually apply the knowledge. So when you're in that transitional phase of understanding something conceptually, but not yet internalizing it enough to take the proper actions, having examples to copy are super helpful. It's like learning dance steps or doing martial art drills. Once you copy the steps and start doing them repeatedly, eventually it becomes second nature and you can do your own moves." This is an awesome question. I love how she worded this to me. So I want to dive into this because boundaries are a huge topic. This is something that is very difficult for people because if you haven't yet set boundaries, you don't really know how. And if you're not super sure of yourself yet, if you don't have a really good foundation of self-worth and self-love, then it can seem almost impossible. So what I'm hearing, what I'm discerning from this email is that she is saying that she gets it, but yet if she could have concrete examples of what this looks like, that might be helpful to her to be able to start to implement these things. But first, if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe and to turn on notifications. I talk about all things that are toxic relationship recovery, self-love mastery, healing hidden shame and unworthiness. I talk about boundaries up the yin. I'm a people-pleasing recovery coach. I do all these type of things. So if this is an area that you struggle with, that you might enjoy this channel. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is this, that there's 8 gazillion areas that we might need to set a boundary. So it's really important to go within first and know that you need to set a boundary. That is step number 1. And I will give examples of action boundaries. Just stay with me here. So the step number 1 is going, okay, I'm feeling some kind of a way. I can feel the clenching in my chest or the tightness in my shoulders or the furrowing of my brow. Something is going to happen to you physically, okay? Because when something happens to us emotionally, oftentimes it will translate into the body. And we're going to feel something physically, and that's going to be an indicator that we are being disrespected or dishonored or not being taken care of or not being a priority or some type of thing that is going to require a boundary. Now, it's important to know this, that it's up to us, period, to make this request of the other person. Anytime that we think that they should know, or I don't do that to them, so they should know not to do it to me, shockingly, people don't know. And this is not a diss on anybody. This is strictly because we are human beings and we're doing the very best we can with the information, knowledge, experiences, programming, backstories, all the things that make us uniquely who we are. That's how we're showing up to relationships in life. So sometimes we're going to set a boundary with someone, they're going to get it. Sometimes we are going to set a boundary with somebody and they're not going to get it. Sometimes we're going to set a boundary with someone and they're going to get it, but then they're going to do it again because they have a habitual pattern. So this is the key. The reason why I say make a request of a verbal boundary to somebody, and if they don't heed that boundary, and at least a couple times, like where you've asked and they're still not doing it, then this is going to require an action boundary. An action boundary means to me is that you follow up with some type of action on your part. You do an action that is actually saying to that person, I am going to remove myself from your energy, from your space, from my attention of you until you clean that thing up. Now, a lot of times we have people in our lives that we love and that they're close to us and we don't want them out of our lives. However, we're afraid of setting these type of boundaries because we think that they're going to not like us, or they're going to get mad at us, or they're going to call us some type of name like controlling or selfish or, all the things. And this can happen even with people who aren't narcissistic. All right. And all that is the ego's way of trying to get their way. All right. So they're on this pattern and they're going to keep doing this thing because it has worked in the past with you. So, sidebar, real quick, I had this conversation with someone today who was going to set a boundary. And I said, now, if that person fights back to you and gets mad or whatever and stomps away, that's not yours to hold. Let that go. Say, okay, well, they're upset about it. But guess what? A person who values you, they're going to ruminate that. They're going to think about that. And there's probably going to be a part inside of them that goes, I can't do that again, or else I'm going to lose the attention and favor of this person. So part of this whole journey of boundary settings, y'all, is getting really comfortable with people getting upset with you, because innocently, I'm not talking about the narcissists and stuff, just regular people in our lives are probably going to get upset with us. All right. I've had it a million times. I'm pretty used to people getting mad at me, family members, kids, whoever, trying to get their way. And when I started to set boundaries, they couldn't get their way. Of course, I got the backlash. But when I stood in it peacefully, not meaning just in front of them, but just in peacefully in life, knowing that it's my job to teach other people how to treat me, then it was much easier, because I also know that boundaries are not only rooted in love of self, but they're rooted in love of the other person too, because you are actually stopping them from doing something that is not okay, that's uncool, that's disrespectful, and you are helping them to actually learn a lesson as well. So with that being said, I just made a short list of some action boundaries that we can do when we have made the request, because it's important everybody realize that a boundary is a request. It's not a control, and it is not to change somebody else, because we have zero power controlling or changing another person's behavior. However, we can control and change ours. So if we've been not setting boundaries and now we're setting boundaries, we're actually taking our power back. And again, give yourself grace in this process, because it's not always one and done. We are here to learn. We are here to grow. Sometimes it's going to go great, and sometimes it's not going to go so great. It depends on where we're at, not only in our own healing, but where we're at emotionally that day. So there's a lot of variables involved. So when this question came to me, I really had to think about it, because there's a lot of variables involved here. But the most important thing that she was requesting is that I give examples of what action boundaries are. So again, sky's the limit with what you might need to set a boundary in, but what's most important is that you realize you need to set a boundary. And this is where I'm going to have to hand you the baton when these things come up for you, so that you can get creative and say, okay, how can I follow up this request that was not heeded, that was not respected? How can I follow up this request with some type of action that's going to show my person that that is no longer acceptable to me? Okay. When they don't listen to our words, they're going to have to listen to our actions. All right. So I made a short list here. Again, sky's the limit of what you need boundaries on, and I can't possibly list them all. So I'm just going to give a few examples. One of my favorites is people raising their voice of me. Now, I say favorites is because that's happened a lot in my life, where people would raise their voices to me for whatever reason. And even if they weren't being hateful, even if they weren't trying to purposefully yell at me and to overpower me, sometimes their emotions just took over. Next thing you know, they're yelling at me. And I understand when people are in an emotional state, and I don't have a problem with that. And I can hold space for people all day long when they're upset about something. Venting is important. We're getting energy out of our body. But when somehow that turns to me and they want that to come at me, and I have a choice. Am I going to sit in this? Like, I picture the cartoon with the lion roaring and this like wave of, my hair being blown back and saliva flying everywhere. That's the picture I get, like when people are yelling at me. So for me, raised voices, yelling, that type of thing is a hell no to me. So here's how this looks. We make the request. We say, hey, person, I understand that you're upset right now, and I want you to know that I'm sitting here with you and I care about you. I want to hear what you have to say, but I can't listen to you when you're yelling at me. Like, that's way too much energy coming my way, and it makes me not be able to think. So I'm going to request that you lower your voice and get calm, and then I will happily hear what you have to say. And if they keep going, you can say, you might need a minute. Go take some time. I'm going to be here when you come back, because it's important that we follow through. I'm going to be here when you come back. But let's revisit this later when you've had a chance to calm down. Now, if they continue this behavior, since you've made the request a couple times, you've fine-tuned it, you've given them some options that they can do here, and the behavior continues, That is where the action boundary comes in. And what that means is that you say, okay, I can see that you're having a hard time controlling your emotions right now, or you're not willing to stop yelling right now. So I'm going to remove myself until a later date, until a later time today or tomorrow, whenever, when we can have this conversation calmly and respectfully. And the action is that you remove yourself. You literally remove yourself. You walk out the door, you go into a different room, you create space between you, you hang up the phone, you stop texting, you do whatever it is you need to do to protect you. Okay, the second example that I gave is drinking and driving. I, first of all, am a huge advocate of not drinking and driving for many reasons before what I'm about to tell you, but my best friend and her daughter were killed by a drunk driver. But not only because of that, this was in place before, because I feel very unsafe when I'm with somebody who's been drinking and now they're driving. And truth be known, I feel unsafe in a vehicle with somebody who's in a really bad mood, because I've been in that, I've sat in that, and I've watched that they don't drive as well when they're in a very bad mood. So this is another place to set a really great example. And you can say to this person, let's start with drinking and driving first. Like, your person, you're going out and this person is driving to the facility and you're like, okay, chances are they might get drink. You can set the boundary ahead of time, say, hey, if you have more than 2 drinks, of course, depending on the person's size, but if you have more than 2 drinks, then I'm going to take an Uber home, or I'm going to need to drive the vehicle home. And if they say, oh, yeah, no problem, whatever, and then they end up getting intoxicated or past your comfort level of getting in the passenger seat with them, then that's when you made the request already, that's when you put the action boundary. Either is, let me have your keys, I'm going to drive. And if they fight you, because sometimes people can, then you say, all right, click out, I'm going to order a Lyft or an Uber, some sort of shared ride situation, or have someone come pick me up. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to yell. You don't have to get mad. You don't have to do anything. It's just, you're not respecting me. And this is what I'm going to do now to ensure my own respect. The other thing I was thinking of when people were yelling and screaming, in fact, or in a bad mood when they were driving a car. In fact, I've had this situation with one of my coaching clients. And I told her, I said, okay, if it's in a place that is safe to do so, you can tell them to pull over and let you out. Okay, action boundary. Take a Lyft home, grab an Uber, get someone to give you a ride. Yes, of course, there's situations sometimes where this may not be applicable, but next time, if they're in a bad mood or a really nasty, energetic place and they go behind the wheel, you can say, I'm not going to drive with you. Now, I have done this before with somebody. And guess what happened? That person learned right away, okay, Kristen's not going to get in the car with me if I'm in this kind of a mood. So people that care about you, once again, and want you in their life and want your attention, they're going to be willing to shift and mold and change things a little bit because they want you around. Now, the people who don't give a rat's patootie, they may not. Okay, well, that's where you might consider that you really need to move away from this person or become very firm with your action boundaries with them, unless or until they end up getting the message. Okay, the next thing that I mentioned, it's kind of a part of raising voice, but it's name calling. So if someone's name calling you, whatever, you put your hand up. I said, I don't accept name calling. You can use good words, healthy words, stop, pause, think about what you're wanting to say, but I will not be called names. And that is like something that I will request probably once. And if that happens, I'm gone. All right. You got to remove yourself from these situations. The whole point of action boundaries is getting creative with how can I remove my energy? All right. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic sequence of events. It's just, that's not okay. I made a request and now I'm going to remove myself. The last thing is gaslighting. Again, all this boils down to is that we're not accepting the unacceptable and we're willing to remove ourselves. So with something like gaslighting, you request that they stay on topic. You can say, okay, I see you're trying to turn this around on me, trying to make this my fault. You're trying to act like I didn't see what I see or heard what I heard or smelled what I smelled or felt what I felt, whatever it might be, or you're trying to make this my fault. Once again, you make the request. I'd like to stay on topic. I would like us to have this conversation reciprocally. We'll move between each other. I'll speak, you speak, and vice versa. You can even go as far as setting a timer on your phone for 2 minutes each. And when that bell's up, okay, you change the person who's speaking. And if this doesn't happen, say it for me now. You already know what you need to do. You need to remove yourself. You need to say, this is not healthy. And I would refrain from saying things that are really aggressive to the person because that's lowering you to their level. You can say, this is not healthy, and this is something that I am not willing to stay in with you because it hurts me. Okay. It's unproductive, and it hurts. It makes me feel bad. So I'm going to wait until you're in a position that we can have a really healthy conversation. So those are just a few examples of things that we can do, but I want you also to get creative about it, and feel free to post below and say, this is what's happening in my life. And I will either make a part 2 of this, or I will address it in comments and give you some ideas about what you can do when you need to set an action boundary, just in case you don't know. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank the subscriber who reached out to me and left a comment. And as always, you guys, you're more than welcome to comment on my stuff. I appreciate that you do. I love reading your comments. It inspires me for upcoming content. Also, I answer your questions, and I'm grateful to hear that you're engaged. I love that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm producing. So thank you so much for being here again. And until next time, remember that you matter. Now go love yourself.